Hi, I'm Hayden Anadonia, and I am here today to talk about a concept that I created back in March. Around my birthday, about a week before, I was in Toronto, um, with my dear friend Matt. We were working on a project of mine that I got very close to finishing and then did finish it and then decided, oh, I actually hate all of this. And so now I'm overhauling everything. So it is not done like I thought it was, which I shouldn't be surprised about because with Preacher's Daughter, I finished it about 4 times and then decided, oh wait, I hate all of this. I have to redo everything. So I think I'm starting to fear that this is just part of my process. But anyways, I worked on this song with Matt, and I had a different idea for this song, completely different idea for the song of what I wanted it to be, and it became something incredibly different. But I love what it became. It actually became probably one of my favorite songs I've ever made. And it spurned this thought. Actually, I don't know if I used that word correctly. Spurned is not. I always get this word incorrect. Spurn means reject with disdain or contempt. That is absolutely not what I'm talking about. I'm thinking churned. But not even churned. It didn't do any of that. It brought forth this idea in my head. Sorry for the little English definition lesson. It created this idea in my head, and I've always tried to describe this feeling since I was younger. I experienced it a little bit when I would listen to great big songs, like especially by Florence and the Machine, obviously my favorite band since I was in high school. And I especially started to feel it when I started smoking weed when I was 18. Right after I graduated high school, I remember it really elevated this feeling that I get, and I always attribute it to autistic processing of art and whatnot, but I don't know, maybe it's that, maybe it's not. It could really be anything. But I had this feeling, and so I stopped. I was just feeling and I feel this way when I'm driving a lot, which I spend a lot of time in my truck driving and listening to music, especially my own demos. And I was listening to the song. It's about a 6-hour drive from Toronto to Pittsburgh, and I was driving back home, and I was overcome by this feeling. So as soon as I got through the border, I went through Niagara because I've never seen Niagara Falls, and I stopped on the U.S. side of the falls, and I walked to Three Sisters Island, and I stood there. It was freezing cold. The sky was gray. It was so beautiful. I really wish I could relive that moment. It was so beautiful. And I stood there by the water. I hopped over the fence. I stood by the water, and I watched the water rushing. And I had my headphones, and I was listening to the song over and over and over. And I'd been listening to it for at least 3 hours prior. So I was fully immersed in the song and the repetition of it. And I stood by the water, and I looked out, and I thought, this is God. This is what God feels like. I feel so close to God in this moment. And now, I'm not talking about some man upstairs. I mean, God, like life, everything around you, the peak of it all. And it inspired me, so I wrote this diagram. I was driving away from Niagara, and I was overcome, and I had to pull over and draw this diagram. So here's the diagram. I don't know if you can see it. I'm covering this page because there's sensitive information. This is the diagram. I'll let you take a moment to screenshot it or read it or take a picture, whatever you want to do. So basically, the ring is a mixing chart. It's a mixing chart. Lord, I'm sorry. For making music, but it's also a diagram of kind of this concept that I've come up with. So as you can see in the bottom of it, so basically I see the ring as a full spectrum of frequency when listening to music, and it's only, the ring is the spectrum, but it's also when it's finished, when the ring is fully completed, that's when it becomes the ring, the concept, not the ring, the mixing chart. So you see at the bottom we have sub bass, and then at the next increment we have the low guitar, the fuzz guitar, and the fuzz bass. We get a little bit higher, we have the bright electric, we have the rhythm guitar, we have the pad synths. At about the middle, we have the low harmonies. And then we move up to the snare, the high harmonies, the lead guitar. We get further up, we have the bright synth, the high lap steel, the tape hiss ultimately at the top, and then in the center, we have the vocals rising up to the top. Now this is not revolutionary, obviously, you know, everyone has their mixing chart, the way that they see sound. I think most producers have like a way that they visualize what they're mixing when they create. But for me, it also describes when this entire ring is completed, it becomes the ring that I visualize it as, and that moves us forward. You can see up here we have the sigh, so we'll get into that with the next diagram that I drew, which is this right here. You can take a picture of it. So here we have the great dark. The great dark is how I visualize everyday life, you know, the banality, the muck and the mire of the human experience. Everyone is here. This is where we all live perpetually. We're all in the great dark. Now, I think that everyone looks for a ring in their life, in a way. Some seek it out more than others. Some may seek it out knowingly, some may seek it out unknowingly, some may encounter it unknowing what it is, and some people may never experience it. But the ring essentially is a portal of elevation and enlightenment. And not in a hippie yah-yah way, but I think the hippie yah-yah folks may also experience that. But when the ring becomes activated, for me, this is my personal experience. When the ring is activated through having a full range of frequencies, you know, in sound, the full hertz scale is met. You have your sub bass, you have the high bits, the high frequencies, and everything in between. When everything is there, the ring is fully activated. You have every frequency going on in a song. In certain songs like that, it creates what I call the pull. And it's this pull of your soul. It's when music transcends music and becomes an emotional experience that is, it pulls you out of your body. And the song that I created with Matt became that for me. Many songs from other artists are rings. I would say Cosmic Love by Florence and the Machine, which was my favorite song for years and years and years, is a ring. I would say a classic ring for me in high school was Grand Loves by Purity Ring. Trying to think of other rings, I would say The Culling by Chelsea Wolfe is almost a dark ring in a way. Pedestal by Vera Blue is a ring for me. Songs that just have that full range of frequencies elicit this kind of emotional response in me where it feels like a pull. So then when you start to feel, so when the ring begins to activate, when the song begins, you start to feel the pull. When the song reaches its climax, when the entire spectrum and frequency range is activated or not, it's reached, it's fulfilled, you experience the sigh, or the crest, as I sometimes call it. And it feels like your body and your soul is sighing, like you've been climbing this great wave, and then the song peaks, and it feels like you've just like sighed, like you're just like you've come over this wave into the divine theater. The divine theater being where God resides. It's an enlightened state of mind of being euphoria, ecstasy, whatever you want to call it. It's that feeling of enlightenment that you don't feel all the time. And that's where God is, behind the veil. Now, many people have so-called rings, so to speak, in their lives. I think a lot of people can experience them through drugs. Drugs are a great way to experience this. Sex, food, anything that is, I don't want to call it a vice, but maybe you would call it I don't know, it's just one of those things. And if it's in your life and you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. It makes you feel that rise of your soul. So when you experience the pull of that, personally for me through music, I go through the ring and I feel the sigh, the crest at the climax of the song, and I enter the divine theater. You experience what I consider to be the currency of the realm, which is proximity to God. Now, again, I'm not speaking of some mystical Christian God or, even, some mysticism, which it may be for you. Maybe it is that for you. For me, it's not. It's different for everyone. But God, in this sense, is a higher calling. I don't want to say being. I don't want to say that God is anything tangible, but it's not that God has ever been tangible, but something that feels beyond yourself. It's a connection to something greater than yourself. It's becoming one with that around you, that which encompasses you and holds you. It's the euphoria and the ecstasy of feeling spiritually enlightened. And I think everyone experiences that in some way. It's something that, when you've got your headphones on or you're watching a movie that really overwhelms you, something that when you feel something, that thing you can't explain, that elevated, that rise that you get, that's what I consider to be the divine theater, proximity to God. Now, I say that there's a veil because there needs to be a dividing factor between you and God. I think that it's the same as Eve eating the apple from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You never want to be one with God. Proximity to God is desirable. I actually wrote it. The desire is to ultimately touch the veil and be flush with God. Tearing through the veil and becoming one with God is an unknown and discouraged experience. I think that becoming one with God, it's ultimately like Kate Blanchett at the end of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where she gets the skull, she has the knowledge, she understands, and she floats away into bits of light, because humans are not meant to be God. We're just meant to be flesh with him. And I think that is a beautiful experience, and I crave it often. I myself have experienced it through music primarily, through drugs, psychedelics, acid, shrooms, take a bit too much ketamine. You can experience that. I do love my sedatives, and I think that slowing my heart rate and, relaxing and whatnot is definitely a way to become one with God. I have definitely been known to take a downer once or twice in my life. I do enjoy them. And that is a way for me to get close to God and to enter the divine theater. There's less of a pull, and it's more of a slow slide into it, but I describe the pull and the ring and the sigh as specifically relating to music for me. But again, people have many rings, people have many portals and entryways into the divine theater. Then we'll move on to the fear. The fear, to me, is the barrier between the divine theater and the great dark. There is a fear, for me personally, of entering that. Some people are more readily willing and enticed by the divine theater to go in. For me, the divine theater is an extremely overwhelming experience, and while it feels good, maybe it's shame, I don't know what it is, but something makes me feel overwhelmed in a not pleasant way when I'm there. So I have a mix of emotions when I'm in the divine theater and feeling that overwhelming euphoria. It's why I can't take any kind of uppers or Molly. That kind of ecstasy and euphoria is a bit too indulgent, and I think it might be shame that or anxiety that prevents me from having that feeling. But it's a bit overwhelming for me. I can't do that in that sense. But the divine theater is very beautiful, but proximity to God is terrifying. It's, when God says, a fear of God is just as important as loving him, and it is a fear. It's the dichotomy of proximity to God is the fear and love of something. Sometimes things that are very good, overwhelmingly good, are just that, overwhelming, and I can't do that all the time. So people who I think some people have a higher capacity for it. For me, it's a treat. It's not a meal. But I do enjoy my time there, and I think it's very beautiful and overwhelming. But I'm sorry, my train of thought just crashed. I was wondering if this video is going to automatically flip or not. Nope, it does not. I'm gonna have to flip it. Okay, well, I'm so sorry. My train of thought is gone this morning. So that's this. Again, to wrap up the fear segment of what I'm talking about. A lot of people, I think, are afraid to enter the divine theater for good reason. It is a bit overwhelming. And so I think that's what divides us from being there all the time, because I think that too much of a good thing is a bad thing, and being here all the time, I think you would lose touch with reality, and it would be harder to communicate with people who live in the great dark, which is the majority of us. I live in the great dark every day. It's, the general state of kind of confusion and anticipation, anxiety of the future, which is healthy. You need to be grounded. Grounded is good. Being grounded is good for the majority of your life. You don't want to be up in the clouds all day, up in the divine theater, rolling around in ecstasy every day. Sometimes you got to get stuff done. You got to go to work. You got to be a real person. And so, the great dark it's not as bad as it sounds. So on the flip side, we have the hole. Jokes aside, the hole is, I love to go there. I love to go, whenever I joke with my friends and say, oh, winter's coming, I'm going to throw blankets over the windows and go into the hole. I'm in my hole. It's what I always describe as being in this place of darkness and kind of despair, wallowing, self-pity, misery, all those fun things, which I think is fine to go into from time to time, as long as you're not staying there, which is why I've written One can venture into the hole, but will enter a perpetual sinking. If one neglects to exit in time, they will enter the maze and become stuck forever. When you enter the hole, you are basically entering a period and a point of darkness, overwhelming darkness, which is fine, but when you're in it, you will enter a state of perpetual sinking where you go deeper and deeper. You can never just remain where you are in it. You will go deeper and deeper. Darkness is inviting, and it will continue to pull you down. So you can go, and I think that there's a lot to be found in the hole. There's inspiration, there's answers to maybe the dark questions of yourself. What are you afraid of? Why are you afraid of it? You know, and I think that's important to know about yourself. I think it's an important place to go every now and then. I don't think that you need to invite people to your pity party if you know that you're throwing it, if it's a conscious decision that you make to go into a dark place, like I choose to do often because I enjoy it, and I think that dark, places are comforting sometimes, to be in a nest or a cave, or, well, not a cave, I'm not a fan of caves, but, everybody has that place that they go in their head where, they love to feel like bad. Sometimes you just want to feel bad, and that sounds counterproductive, but life isn't about feeling good all the time. Sometimes you want to feel bad. You need to feel bad. Grieving and depression, all those places are kind of natural things that are okay to be in. You just can't stay there forever. So you have to be conscious of that, which is why I say you will enter perpetual sinking. You can be there, but you can't be there forever, because eventually you will sink down into what I call the maze. The maze is a place of wandering, of extreme confusion, of unreality, a detachment from reality, which is not a good place to be. I don't see people leaving the maze. It's a place of extreme confusion and delusion. I've known people in my life close to me who have been lost to what I describe as the maze, people who no longer are in touch with reality, and it's terrifying, and it's hard for them, it's hard for everyone around them. It's very sad, and it's not a place that you want to be. It's not a place that I want to go ever, which is why I have to keep myself in check when I'm throwing a pity party and wallowing in depression and all the negative aspects of the psyche. You have to be careful, because you don't want to dip into something you can't come back from. Some people, it's voluntary. Some people, it's involuntary. Some people have an obsession with the dark that takes them down there. Some people, maybe through mental illness beyond their control, they sink into a place that's terrifying and that they can't get out of, and it's just not a good place. But it exists, and yeah, that's why it's on there as the maze. But yeah, at the bottom I have, we are all wanderers in the great dark. We all strive to invoke the ring. And maybe not all of us, but I feel like a good deal of us. But yeah, that's my little diagram about music and enlightenment and depression and my mental state at the moment. It's kind of how I see things. It's fun to kind of put things into words sometimes. I think it helps you kind of understand things better. And that's just how I personally process my life, the world around me, things like that, what I'm up to, what I'm doing. I've been growing my nails out. They're very long. They're my natural nails. They're very long. I like them. But yeah, I've had that thought on my mind for a little while, and I kind of wanted to talk about it, and share that with you guys. I might make another video about it at some point in the future, when maybe I kind of add to the diagram or come up with some more components for it and whatnot. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Speaking of other parts, I promise part 2 of the art books tour will be coming. I'm excited. I just have to unpack them. They're literally in a box, like right over there. But I have to unpack them, and then I'll read them and whatnot. But whatnot. I guess whatnot is my word of the day. But yeah, that's coming soon. I promise I'm gonna film it. I haven't forgotten about it. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.